How's it going, guys? And welcome to your Smackdown review. So, hot off the heels, if you haven't already seen my video right before this one about the 18 wrestlers that were released from the company. In that video, I don't know if anyone read the description. I don't think anyone really cared because I didn't really see this in the comments, but Harry Smith was part of that, which is the British Bulldog's son. He was apparently like working in NXT or something like that, and the New York Post didn't even pick up on the guy, so he wasn't even reported in that story. But yeah, that made 18. Anyway, on to SmackDown. Roman Reigns is back. They made up some excuse that he was there on I guess he was on vacation. I don't really know the reason. Couldn't really find anything online. But as you know, if you watched the review last week or you watched the show, you know just how terrible it was. It was an absolute brutal disaster. Well, this week, there wasn't like any women really at all, which was, you look at this show and it was kind of refreshing in a way. There was no Charlotte, which doesn't really speak volumes. Now, I'm a Charlotte fan, but, the stuff they were showing with her and Sasha has been absolute cringe. But this show, it was tolerable. It was to a point, I have to say. So we'll talk about it. It was not great. It was not a glorious show or anything like that, but there were some decent moments on here that made it bearable, and I didn't hate myself by the end of it like I did last week. Now we start off, and we've got Roman back, and, hearing Roman Reigns disciplining the Usos, I really like this. See, this such a complete departure from the way we saw the show open last week with Charlotte and Sasha Banks, where we were just kind of holding our heads and tiptoeing around controversy instead of just diving into it head first and really getting our feet wet. But they don't want to air the dirty laundry out on TV, even though that would be entertaining as hell. And that's just the surge that they would need to really regain interest, is insert that reality. I mean, how ridiculous does it look with something like wrestling where it's all over the internet? You know everything that's going on, basically. Some of it's untrue, but more or less the truth always comes out in the end. All this stuff happens and all the controversy, and then we just pretend like nothing's happening. And it's it really seems kind of foolish, and it's very insulting to one's intelligence. Because they still acknowledge it, but they won't play into it completely. But whatever. I'm basically asking for something that will never happen. That's pointless. So anyway, I enjoyed this. There seemed to be, for a change, some consequences for someone losing on the show. He specifically wanted to know who was pinned in that match that they lost against the New Day last week, and it was Jimmy. And then the New Day comes out, and this is where things start to go south. Now, I like the Usos and their retorts, but the New Day just goofing around here. Kofi and Xavier doing this bit where they're trying to be cutesy, and it was just trying to make fun of Jimmy Uso's name, Jiminy. Seriously, is anyone laughing at this or enjoying this? And I get it, these guys sell merchandise, so we want to put them on the show and everything, but you look at the people that buy the merchandise. It's people that are even older than me. You got people in their 30s, people in their 40s wearing the ridiculous looking, embarrassing merchandise of the New Day. And quite frankly, I don't even see them wearing any merchandise. I mean, you just made Xavier into a king, and I don't even see anything that anyone can buy of this. I mean, I haven't seen WWE shop lately, so I don't know if there's like a new t-shirt or something, but this is basically why they've kept the New Day going for so long. And it is so stale to the point where this is how they're trying to like refresh it in a way by giving Xavier Woods a gimmick that's been done at least like 10 different times over the past decade, except this time it's being done by a babyface. And it's made them even cringier, even more annoying, to be quite honest. And Kofi is really just diving into overdrive, trying to be the hand of the king. And I just look at this guy and I'm like, this was the WWE champion. This is the one that, people on the internet were saying like, oh, this is great. This is history making and everything, and they tried to like erase history and say like that The Rock, wasn't the first black champion, and Mark Henry, because it was the world heavyweight championship, it was the big gold belt, so like that didn't count. So nothing was good enough, but they'll acknowledge this lame, completely overrated, and he really has been overrated over the years. Kofi Kingston is this guy that, the internet fans said for years and years he should be world champion. They gave him the belt, and it was a complete disaster. Kofi Mania, as they called it, was a complete joke. He had like no like championship aura to him. He did not have a feel to him in this reign. And it was pretty poetic that Brock Lesnar came in and 2019 and just squashed him to win the belt, because it was a disaster. So every time I see this guy, I just think of when he's acting even goofier that he was as champion. This is just a total insult. It's an insult to we're going to talk about also Cesaro on this show being considered a world championship contender and what he's doing on the show. So anyway, we'll move past this because we've done 1,000 New Day rants, and we'll talk about a little bit later on the show. So they make a match. It's going to be a bend the knee match, or the winner will bend the knee. If Xavier loses, he has to bend the knee to Jimmy. If Jimmy loses, that he's got to bend the knee to Xavier Woods. So, okay, great. Like, first of all, who cares? Is anyone's like, it's one thing to have stakes in matches. That's something that's lacking in wrestling today, right? There's no stakes. Just a bunch of random matches, a bunch of random 6-man tags, and all these other things. But when they do stakes, it's this, and it's like you don't even care, because it's not even like it's a big, long-running feud. I mean, they did have a feud that goes back many years, but they kind of took a break from it, and now it's a restart. Look, basically what I'm trying to say, this is not the kiss my foot match between Bret Hart and Jerry the King Lawler. Obviously, there's shades of it, you could say, but like, seriously, are we kidding? I'm sure there's going to be some goofs on the internet saying, same energy, or something to that effect. This is what everybody likes to do. They like to make their little memes online and say like, oh, this reminds me of the past. Kind of like we had the Bianca Belair, Sasha Banks comparison to Stone Cold versus The Rock, which was probably the most embarrassing thing I've seen from the internet in terms of wrestling in quite some time. I forget which page posted it or something. I believe it was one of those goofballs that sometimes appears on the pre-show. I believe it was, I think it was Rosenberg who did it, if I'm not mistaken, or it might have been that other guy that hasn't been there in a while with the curly hair. Whoever it is, it was lame as hell, and I never want to see that meme again. But watch, I'll probably like go on Facebook and it will pop up right away. Anyway, we move on. So this segment was like back and forth because you had one side of New Day being complete jackasses and it was just annoying, to, the Bloodline. And, I've criticized Heyman, but Heyman like yelling at Jay to like hand the microphone to Roman Reigns a certain way. He like freaked out. I thought that was pretty funny. Sometimes Heyman's shtick can be really comical. Other times it's just annoying and off-putting. Because the thing is, also, it's like he's such like a cartoon character. and you know, then you've got Roman, and then you've got Jay and Jimmy, which they can be funny, but not in like that like funny like ha 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 kind of way. It's funny like, you know, the guys are like just so good with their vibe and their flow in the promos that you kind of sometimes just smile and chuckle a little bit. It's kind of like that sort of funny, you know. And Heyman, like, he just doesn't fit in. Like, let me ask you a question. When you look at that Bloodline T-shirt and you see, you know, Roman there and the Usos and they're looking like G's, you know, and then you got Heyman there, and you're just like, what? Like, he just seems like really out of place, and you kind of think back to other managers, and you didn't really have that way. Like, I know Bobby the Brain Heenan was goofy, but in a way, he didn't have that Heyman aura, and I think it's just the fact that Heyman's been goofing around for so long, and he never used to be that way. Like, I didn't get goofy vibes from Heyman back in, like, 2003, for example, and I've talked about that on a number of occasions. It's just, he's gotten, you know, first of all, I think it's about him, like, getting fatter and just being kind of goofier looking and stuff, and just, it hasn't helped that he's made his shtick, like, overly comedic, and I think that's the problem. He was always funny, you know, on commentary. I've talked about some number of occasions. You could go back and watch Raw from 2001, and you know, and you'll hear some amazing commentary with him and JR, like great rapport. You know, maybe not as good as him and the King, but I gotta say, it wasn't really miles behind like you think it would. But anyway, that's enough about that. We'll move on here. We've got Naomi against Shayna Baszler. And, you know, I kind of feel like they're just, Shayna Baszler is almost like she hasn't said a word or anything like that. It's just like she's being used as a pawn with Sonya, and she just kind of feels like she's playing a role that like any other wrestler can play. Like, is anyone else getting that vibe from it? And, you know, I kind of appreciate the effort here to try to give Naomi a little bit of a sort of like a push in a way, you know, like a little bit of like against the authority figure, but it's Sonya Deville and that acting. I mean, you know, look, this is almost like you want to talk about same energy and doing those lame ass comparisons to moments of the past and try to compare them to lame moments of today. Like, I just think back to like Austin versus McMahon, and there's probably somewhere somebody on you know, on Instagram running a page or something like that is like, that likes this and thinks it has that same energy. I know it's gotta be. This is almost like 0.0000001% of that. I mean, we're talking about probably the greatest storyline of all time. But whatever. So Sonya says this is going to be a fair match backstage. They have the match. We have Naomi win with it was a victory roll. Then Sonya comes out and says because Shayna Baszler had touched the ropes, the hold should have been broken. And, you know, in a way, like, so after that, you've got Shayna locking her in a Karafuda clutch. Something about that name, I always, like, think of it like the Fruity Tooty clutch. It's just such a weird name, whatever. You know, then again, you got the Kanta Hajime with the Taz Mission, you know, these goofy sounding, you know, submission names, but whatever. So she ends up passing out in the hold. Now, you know, I kind of thought back, like, okay, holding the ropes, like, but there was, if anyone remembers, when they were doing the storyline where Stephanie McMahon was like screwing Test out of a match one time, She had called for the bell because he was using a closed fist when doing like mounted punches in the corner, like the 10 punch. So they've done stuff like this in the past. I mean, it's okay, I suppose. It just feels like really dry. And, if Sonya would maybe deliver the lines a little bit more and add a bit more, like, attitude, like, I don't really feel a lot of impending danger from Sonya Deville. I don't really feel a lot of angst. I don't really feel like there's any heat there. It's just very, like, let's restart the match. You could seriously have like a robot read these lines. And I think that could be kind of interesting. Be a little sci-fi, Naomi versus the robot, commissioner, or in this case, robot WWE official, since they don't even have real names anymore. Anyway, we get, after this, we've got Roman Reigns cutting a promo backstage, and he talks about how SmackDown sucked because, the Usos lost, and this is the reason why it sucked. Well, it sucked, yeah, because you weren't there, and other reasons, just terrible stuff all around last week. And he also says it was almost as bad as Raw. I'm like, holy shit. The thing is, like, did he say that line, like, meaning, like, because they're SmackDown, they're headed into Survivor Series? Because, like, there's one thing, like Chris Jericho cutting that promo in 1999 when he first debuted, saying, like, the show was filled with people with no charisma and Jericho was there to save it. But we all knew, like, it was just him being a heel because WWE was at the top of their game. They were having one of their best years ever. So, everyone kind of just laughed it off. But, like, now when a wrestler says a show sucks, your ears kind of perk up a little bit more because it's like, yeah, it really does suck. So, like, it's funny to hear that, but at the same time, it's a face palm because it's like, yeah, tell me something I don't know. It really does fucking blow. I mean, honestly, I don't even review that show, for fuck's sakes. Anyway, entertaining. I like that they've returned to this where we're cutting backstage with Roman kind of, sitting back there as the boss character. Then they tell us Shotzi is up next. But guess what? You know how the way how this show goes when they tell you someone's up next. Remember, like, Rollins standing in the ring for like several segments, an entire pay-per-view lineup. Well, Shotzi, then commercial, then we get Xyla Lee, then we get a Ridge Holland promo, and he talks about Sheamus. He talks about how much he loves Sheamus and admires Sheamus, and he'd sit around and watch Sheamus matches with his friends, but Sheamus has not been there. He wasn't there last week. Like, what was the point of this draft? To draft these wrestlers and they're doing nothing. They're sitting on the sidelines. I mean, like, honestly, like, it's not like this show has so much to offer where we could just hold people back. Like, oh, we have so much entertainment here that's just brimming with greatness that we could just afford to have people like Sheamus, just stay in the back. I mean, I know a lot of people are not crazy about Sheamus, but I still believe he's one of the best talents that they have. I mean, he's still one of the guys that looks like a star on this show. I know, like I said, people think otherwise, but I disagree. We have Shotzi Blackheart cutting her first heel promo. And I gotta tell you, son, she looked a lot better this week, quite honestly. Way more attractive than she has in the past. I don't know if it was the makeup or whatever, but I was feeling Shotzi here, but I was not feeling this promo. I mean, this is not a heel here I'm looking at. It's very hard because she doesn't really have like that type of look where she could be like the mean girl. You could have, a pretty face and be a heel. We've seen Trish Stratus do it. We've seen Mandy Rose do it more recently. We've seen it on a number of occasions. But yeah, not Shotzi. I mean, I look at Shotzi and I see a baby face. That, quite honestly. And now she's like kind of hinting at not having the tank. I mean, someone like this, that just basically just, she crows like a rooster. I mean, is that what we're going to get for now on? No tank. Okay, it might be a little goofy her coming out there in a tank, but let's be honest. It's one of the few things that, like, gives her a sense of individuality. And it might just be an entrance, but, it's something there. Now they're going to probably take that all away. And, they have no idea what to do with this girl. She comes in with Tegan Nox. They make like she's going to be a tag champion. They win a contenders match. They, like, don't even get the tag team title match, I think. Then they take Tegan Nox away. I think she goes back to NXT or something like that. And Shotzi's on her own. She's a baby face. And then all of a sudden... And the thing is, like, what the hell set her off last week so much? She's so enraged. She's giving up on everything. No, she's sick of smiling. What? Because she got distracted by Sasha Banks? This is what's... Like, it's just misplaced anger. It makes no sense, like, that she'd be this angry over something this minimal. I lost the match. My whole life has changed. Like, it's like, okay, calm down. This is not enough to turn heel over, and turn your back on the fans. Oh, my God. I'm just saying. It doesn't make any sense. Like I said, they really went overboard last week with that, like, seemingly endless heel turn where she, like, beat on Sasha for like 5 whole minutes, and we got the picture. You could just hit like a few punches and a finisher and end it, or chair shot and like end it or something like that. But she's like mercilessly beating on her, performing all these different wrestling moves. It's like, it's enough already. And on top of that, like, they're really, like, going overboard and making her a heel. Like, totally, metamorphosizing her whole personality. Like, does anyone care? But, this was basically it for the women. There was nothing else on this show, which was really odd to say the least. There was nothing else from the women, aside from a little appearance later on from Aaliyah, which we'll talk about in a second. And we got the Los Lotharios, which is Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo. And, like, this is kind of like Primo Epico, like, 2.0. Them standing there, trying to be like, the sexy Latinos. And okay, like, but this team right here, like, does anyone, like, there's nothing that they're adding to them, like, their appearance or anything to really spice it up. It's kind of like the most bare bones approach. It's not even like they're putting them, on with an island tropical background, like Primo and Epico. They're not even doing that. All right, but whatever. Anyway, so they have this match, and it's against Cesaro and Mansoor. And you might think to yourself, well, okay, well, obviously Mansoor is going to get pinned here. No, it's Cesaro. Does anyone remember right after WrestleMania, what was the first match that they did, like, at Backlash? Cesaro versus Roman Reigns. And that was like a 20 minutes, almost a half an hour match. Cesaro narrowly winning the belt, and now he's jobbing out in a tag match. Now, I'm one of the ones that I've said, like, I believe that Cesaro's a talented guy, but he's vastly overrated, much like a lot of other wrestlers are, to be quite honest. They think that a lot of fans think that everything should be handed to Cesaro on a silver platter. Quite frankly, I said, like, guys like Karrion Kross, I think, deserve way more than Cesaro, and he got released. So, so there's that. But obviously, they really think a lot less of Cesaro than they did. And I don't know if that was to keep him in the company. Like, first of all, why would they even want to keep him in the company? If this is the way that they're going to, like, treat him, like, obviously, I didn't even believe him to be a worthy contender to Reigns. So it's like, I don't even know, like, how did this guy survive the cuts? Like, removing Cesaro from this show would really not amount to, like, any difference. Like, of course the fans would complain, but they want him to go to AEW anyway, so goodbye, Anyway, odd choice there, like, really, like, man, talk about a fall from grace. Jeff Hardy is backstage, and he's talking to Aaliyah, and one of the other interviewers, the other blonde-headed girl, I think it was the one that interviewed Shotzi, she totally, like, cock blocks Jeff. Like, interrupting his conversation with Aaliyah. They're talking about horses. Horses, like, who gives a horse's ass? This is Jeff Hardy. Like I said, once again, we're talking about one of the all-time greats, in my opinion anyway. I'm a big Jeff Hardy fan, always have been, always will be. And to see Jeff reduce to this minuscule position just pains me. I already talked about this last week, but anyway, Aaliyah takes a few steps. She runs into Sami Zayn. Jeff Hardy takes a break from that cock-blocking interview, goes to talk to Sami Zayn, who's bothering Aaliyah now. He tells her she should dress in a pantsuit, is giving advice. She asks Jeff, like, is he always like this? And he goes, he is. Welcome to SmackDown. And that's it for Jeff, folks. Now, it's been announced that he's going to be on the SmackDown team. And, like, great. But, like, the guy hasn't done anything on SmackDown. They haven't let him do anything. Like honestly, am I seriously watching Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza in just a worthless tag match that meant nothing, instead of seeing Jeff Hardy do something meaningful, a guy who's over, a guy who's going to walk out there and genuinely get a massive pop, and they won't even have to filter in pop? I mean, what? Like, this is... How do they look at Jeff Hardy? I just don't get it. Like, what's going on here? Vince, writing team, huh? Like, I don't know. I really don't. Anyway, we get Drew McIntyre, and he's now the SmackDown Warrior. He's got a new nickname. It couldn't get any more generic than that. So he grabs the mic, and it's time for an open challenge, or as I like to call it, we've got nothing for Drew McIntyre, so get someone out there, pal. Like, just get a random guy out there. And it's Ricochet, and he starts off cutting this very generic promo. You gotta love these promos that they've done in all these open challenges. You might not expect someone to walk to the ring, and every single step he's saying a word as he's walking up the ring steps. I fucking hate when they do that, because it's just like so cookie cutter. You can't say I'm more indie than that sort of promo. I'm going to wrestle you. Like, it's almost like a song. Like, they should probably play a backbeat over that, because there's so much room there. It's almost like a melody right there. But anyway, so we have this match. It's a good match. I'm not going to lie. Like, I actually really did enjoy this match. First of all, Ricochet, I will say something. This guy right here, and I have to mention this. Pat McAfee calling this guy a human joystick, and then Cole says a human video game, and I'm like, a human joystick. Really? Like, especially with this guy posted on the internet, I just found that really funny, and I understand what McAfee's trying to say, but that was unintentionally kind of funny there. A human joystick. Use your imagination there, folks. Anyway, this match right here, I mean, like, he's very crisp in the ring. He does these moves, Ricochet, but unlike the AEW guys that are flopping and making it look bad, like, you had Ricochet really working here with Drew. And, you know, a lot of these spots here with, like, Drew going for the reverse Alabama slam and, like, reversing it into the victory roll. And, you know, and a lot of these little spots here, like catching Ricochet, look very good. And Ricochet selling the belly to belly out of the corner, going flying out extra high, like, just really making Drew look good. And them both, like, really playing off each other well here. And the finish, well, that finish right there, that was like a beautiful, like, Randy Orton, Evan Bourne, if anyone remembers the shooting star press into the RKO counter. Well, here we get Ricochet going for, what, I don't know what move he was going for. What, I think it was like a moonsault or something. And in the middle of the flip, boom, the Claymore. And Drew hit it perfectly, like, the timing was straight on, and it looked good, and Ricochet didn't, like, land on top of him or something sloppy like that. Like, if they did that spot anywhere else, like in AEW or the Indies, it would have been a fucking train wreck, but it looked really good there. So, like, really, just, you know, I'm not a big, massive Ricochet fan, like, you know, and the guy strikes me as, like, a goofball, and, you know, the fact that we were led to believe that this guy was, like, world champion material, like, a few years back, you know. But this is kind of like a spot where, you know, okay, we already knew the outcome of this match, but it was enjoyable to watch. And I'd be lying if I said that I didn't enjoy one of Ricochet's matches, because this was good. He's not bad. I talked about it in the Money in the Bank. I have given him credit in the past. Like, sometimes the guy's stuff can be kind of breathtaking, and he is very artsy. And, you know, even though I'm not a big, like, as I've gotten older, really gotten tired of all the high-flying nonsense, this guy does it well. So in the middle of the match, they cut to Mansoor, and he says that he thinks that they have a lot in common. Not Mansoor, Mustafa Ali. The guys wrestled each other so many times, I'm getting them confused. But yeah, Mustafa Ali says they got a lot in common. You know, like, anyone really cares about this, about him watching the match? It's like one thing if they're going to do something interesting to, like, interrupt the match, but, like, what we see this leads to is, like, I was kind of thinking to myself, because last week he was basically blaming everyone for being racist, saying, you guys cheer for Drew because my name is Mustafa Ali. I was like, oh, okay, we're going for Muhammad Hassan vibes here. I'm like, okay, you know, we're off to the races. I could get behind that gimmick. You know, even though it's a repeated gimmick, we haven't seen it in a while, and it was cut short with Muhammad Hassan, so okay, why not? But, you know, it looks like we're not going to be getting that, because we get a New Day promo. We'll get a follow-up in a little bit to the Ricochet stuff. But, yeah, New Day promo, and they're not done goofing around. Like, if that opening segment wasn't enough for you, they're gyrating, they're stretching, they're talking about another man stretching, like, come on. Like, the jokes are just so fucking cringe. Like, this is the thing. Like, I was happy at least on Raw. You know, you had New Day there, and I wasn't watching Raw, just reviewing SmackDown. But now these guys are here, and this is just torture for me. Honestly, like, I just gotta say, I understand why they're keeping these guys together. WWE's gotta make money, but they are so fucking unbearable to watch. Honestly, like, it is just bottom of the barrel humor. It's bottom of the barrel everything. And the fact is that it's the same jokes for years with these guys. And it doesn't even matter that they've been on Raw for like a year or two. They come back to SmackDown, they're doing the same things. Even when he's a king, he's still doing the same lame shit. Now it's just, and now Kofi's like sort of doing the accent and Xavier's not. It's like, it's just so horrible. It's just so bad. I mean, really just unfunny, terrible, cringy stuff from two guys that look like two goofy beta males. It's just an embarrassment. It really is. I mean, so Corbin enters. Corbin and Riddick Moss, but guess what? We got to change the scene, guys, because no one's allowed to just have one straight through entrance. So we cut past that. We get Mustafa Ali and Mansoor back. Again, I got Mansoor on the brain. I'm so used to like the past couple of weeks talking about these guys. No, Ricochet, and he approaches Ricochet and he wants to form a tag team with him. And I thought that when he denied him here, basically Ricochet very generically tells him, "Oh, you're a jerk." And anyway, I thought Mustafa was going to call him, racist or something like that. But, it's almost like they totally forgot about what he said last week. And they abandoned ship. I don't know if... I didn't really see any negative feedback on this. I don't think anyone even really fucking cared. But, I don't get where they're going with this. So now we're going to have, this is... Speaking of Mansoor, since I got him on the brain... this is going to be like the same thing. They're just going to probably wrestle each other 10 times, ad nausea. So, there we go. That's what we have to look forward to. Not a new gimmick change like I thought that there was going to be for him. Anyway, we got Happy Talk here. And, this is the thing, guys. I've talked about it for weeks and weeks. How do you take a guy that is, finally finds his niche after you give him the lame ass king gimmick, hold him back for 2 years with that nonsense, even though we could clearly see the improvements the guy has made in his promos, and he's really worked at everything. And I know the guy's got a lot of haters, but I've always stood behind him. I think that the guy really does work very hard at what he does, and I personally like him. I mean, he reminds me of an old school wrestler. It's, a guy that just is in there, looking like a wrestler, basically. And he's really perfected himself when it comes to the promos. And we saw that with bum-ass Baron Corbin. But that gimmick has come and went. And, it's always been like this. Whenever someone starts hitting on something genius, Sami Zayn, who else has hit on something? Countless others. Bad News Barrett. I've talked about it on a number of occasions. People coming up with these great gimmicks. Even Matt Hardy. They won't follow it through. They always gotta scrap it at the last minute because they didn't think of it or wherever the case may be. And this is where the AEW fanboy goofballs will come in and say, "Oh, see, this is why I gotta go to AEW." Is Matt Hardy his gimmick change? I mean, they're not even letting him do the broken gimmick anymore. Instead, they're just having him do some very generic $1 Million Man nonsense. So I don't really see where these people are improving when they go to AEW, even though people always have that argument. But anyway, it's just really just a gigantic come down from where he was, and now he's just a laughing lunatic basically. So the Viking Raiders are the guests on this show. They come and they say that this show sucks and they're here to rate it. Again, a little bit of truth in jest in a way. This show really has sucked. Also, there was one joke that Riddick Moss told. I'm all for cheesy jokes, but I didn't even understand the first joke he told before the Raiders came out there. I was left scratching my head like, what was that even supposed to mean? Yeah. Like, that one was lost to me. Like, the other ones I got, like, yeah, super cheesy, and that's the point. But also, you have Moss cutting this promo, and, like, this, once again, fires up the Viking Raiders. He tells a joke about, women thinking they're smelly, and they, like, totally lose it. It's like the Shotzi Blackheart situation. People are just getting angry for, like, no good reason on this show. What? You said I smell? like, honestly, like, if someone told you that, like, someone walked up to you and just said, you smell, are you gonna, like, beat their ass down and, like, just stomp them into an inch of their life? I don't know. But anyway, we've got Scrap Heap Adam Pearce is back, but we don't get to see him. We just hear that he was there during the break. Okay, so he made a tag match. Corbin and Moss end up getting counted out. That's the end of that. Okay, it was an alright match. The Raiders are a decent team, I suppose. Any team is better than New Day, I suppose, as far as, like, character. We get a Raw rebound, and what the fuck is even going on Raw? Seth Rollins goes, I knew this was going to happen. He goes from having this great feud with Edge that was so fun and entertaining to watch to this, where he's like, he's helping Kevin Owens win a match against Big E, and Kevin Owens refuses the offer, but then he goes for the pin after. I couldn't tell if, like, Seth Rollins hit him with the clipboard he was holding or it was just a punch, but he goes for the pin on Big E. And then Big E ends up, like, reversing it into a crucifix pin of his own. And he ends up winning. And Kevin Owens is apologizing. Oh, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry for pinning you. Like, holy shit. Like, what a fucking terrible ass show that is. I mean, I think that this show is bad, but this is why I've picked to review this show. Because at least sometimes there's decent stuff on it. You know what I mean? Like, at least sometimes there's funny stuff from some of these talents. Sometimes you get a good segment. At least there's some good stuff from the Usos and Reigns, and you get a nice little short good match with Ricochet and Drew McIntyre where there's no complaints. So once in a while it's not a complete waste of 2 hours, and plus it's only 2 hours, not 3 hours. Anyway, that looked like it was a really lousy-ass show. And then we also see, who's Cringy Lynch's next opponent? Liv Morgan. Okay, anyway, Sami Zayn is not done giving advice to people. We can clearly see that they're trying to figure out, like, what to do with this guy. He wants to be the assistant for Sonya Deville last week. No follow-up. Now he's the advice guy. He's telling Aaliyah how to dress. We just want the conspiracy theorists. We want the guy with the crazy, board that looks like Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, figuring out where the mail comes from. But we didn't get that. Instead, we're getting this, fashion advice, Sami Zayn. So we see Hit Row, who's fresh off of B-Fab getting released. So she's not there, but, the other three guys are there. And Sami Zayn says, we've got to work on your entrance. It could be better. And so they say, okay, show us how it's done. So Sami Zayn goes out there and he's all freaking out and going nuts and stuff. And, like, it didn't really make me laugh because it kind of was just kind of stupid in a way. It's like, I've seen this joke 1,000 times in other movies and stuff. Oh, I'm dancing horribly. Okay, like, I get it. This is really just the worst use of Zayn's talents. I mean, this is such a talented guy. for years and years, we had this guy just coming out in a taxi driver hat, being a total goofball, having him wrestle and do all these high spots and flips, and all this guy had to do was explore his own inner character, and he found it, and it was glorious. But instead, we still see the charisma, but it's like we're getting like 10% of it, 20% of it. So Hit Row comes out, and they first compliment them, and then they insult them and say that what he was doing was lame and bad and stuff, and okay, and then Zayn, they allow Zayn to walk away. He's like unsure, and he's kind of watching them from the entrance ramp, and I thought he was maybe gonna quickly jump the big guy from behind, but he never ended up doing that. And this like all took place at like the entrance ramp. It felt like really weird and awkward, and just like, what the fuck was that? It really was. It was kind of like a few weeks back where we just had Nakamurphy and Boogs come out. Where were they this week? They weren't even on the show. Remember when they came out and they just left in the middle of Happy Talk? Well, this was kind of like that. This was a little bit less random. It made more sense, but still, I don't really know what they were trying to accomplish here with this. It's just basically like they know they have something with Zayn, and they had it, but they ripped it away from him, and they're reinserting him into like Nowheresville with like no direction. They're just fumbling around with him for no particular reason. Then we get the main event. It's Xavier Woods defeating Jimmy Uso. And okay, I'll be honest here. This was a pretty decent match. It has to end with a goofballish roll-up, of course, because why not? Well, after you get all these moves and stuff like that, for it to just end with a roll-up, like, what's the point there? It's like they feel like the roll-up is like the out, like, you beat the guy, but you didn't really do a move to do it, so it's like, is that their, like, modern-day version of, like, protecting him? Okay, I don't know. But anyway, like, yeah, it was decent. It did not feel like a main event, really, when you think about it. It's Xavier Woods, for fuck's sakes. But I get it, Jimmy Uso has that elevated feel to him, so it felt like better than if these guys were to wrestle each other like 5 years ago, if you know what I'm saying. But anyway, because you have Reigns at ringside, and and Jay is there too, so it kind of ups the ante. Anyway, it looks like Jimmy is about to bend the knee, but Reigns comes in and gives the Superman punch to Xavier, and they just beat their asses down, and the heels stand tall. I thought that they were going to go with, like, Big E coming to the rescue, but it was actually nice that they didn't do that. Like, who is, like, Roman Reigns' opponent? Like, honestly, like, we're not building Drew McIntyre to be his next challenger. Jeff Hardy is backstage just saying, SmackDown's great. I mean, okay, I get it. He's going to wrestle Big E at Survivor Series, so this is like the build to it. But, like, it's like Big E is not there. So, like, I know it's supposed to be sort of poetic, and this is supposed to be like, oh, well, these are his buddies. I don't care. Like, honestly, we just had a draft, and now we're going to do Raw versus SmackDown, even though some of these guys were just there a month ago. Whatever. The show was not good, but it was decent. It was passable. It was nice that there was a lack of the women on here, so I didn't cringe too much. The Sonya Deville storyline thing was out of the way fast. We just had a little short Shotzi promo, and that was it. This was very, bizarre. Like, yeah, like I'm very used to seeing, Nakamurphy and Boogs. I'm so used to seeing like the women coming out. It's weird that the champion is not on there, but we all know that there's controversy. So I don't know. No complaints there. I'm not gonna complain about something that I don't even want to see in the first place, to be quite honest. So yeah, I mean, refreshing in certain respects, but really lacking in others. I mean, you could clearly see that there are pieces here for a good show, but it's like the puzzle just ends up all jumbled up. But, that is the modern day of wrestling. That's WWE for you. So anyway, and it could be a lot worse. We could be watching Rampage. Like, yeah. Anyway, guys, hope you all enjoyed the review. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.